Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will talk about Keats' sensuousness. Sensuousness is the word that is derived from or affect the sense of sight, hearing, touch, smell and taste. By the term sensuous poetry is meant such type of poetry that is devoted not to an idea or a philosophical thought but mainly to the task of giving delight to the senses. Sensuous poetry would have an appeal to our eyes by presenting beautiful and colorful word pictures, to our ears by its metrical music and musical sounds, to our nose by arousing our sense of smell, and so on. So it means that sensuousness means appeal to our senses, eye, ear, nose, taste and smell, and sense of hot and cold. All poetry proceeds originally from sense impressions, and all poets are more or less sensuous. Impressions of the senses are in fact the starting point of the poetic process, for it is what the poet sees and hears that excites his emotion and imagination, and his emotional and imaginative reaction to his sense impressions generates poetry. Wordsworth, Milton, Keats are such type of sensuous poets. It means that their poetry appeals to our senses. Keats was a worshipper of beauty and pursued beauty everywhere, and it was his senses that first revealed to him the beauty of things, the beauty of the universe, from the stars to the sky to the flowers of the woods. First struck his senses, and then from the beauty perceptible to the senses, his imagination sees the principle of beauty in all the things. He could make poetry only out of what he felt upon his pulses. Thus it was his sense impressions that kindled his imagination, which made him realize the great principle that beauty is truth and truth beauty. There are some examples of his sensuous poetry. First of all, picture to eye. Keats is a painter in words. With the help of a mere few words, he presents a solid, concrete picture. Her hair was long, her feet was light, and her eyes were wide. Her hair was long, her feet was light, and her eyes were wild. Here is another example of sense of hearing. The music of the nightingale produces pangs of pain in poet's heart. Forlorn, the very word is like a bell to toll thee back from thee to my soul's sense of touch. The opening lines of La Belle Dame sans Mercy describe extreme cold. The sedge is withered from the lake and no birds sing. Calvin called the line "and no birds sing" as the best line in English literature. Here, fourth example is sense of taste. In Ode to a Nightingale, Keats describes many wines. The idea of their taste is intoxicating. Oh, for a beaker full of a warm south, full of the true, the blushful Hippocrene. Last not the least, the pictures of smell. The poet can't see the flowers in the darkness. There is mingled perfume of many flowers. Fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musk rose full of dewy wine, the murmurous hunts of flies on summer's eves. Ode to Autumn, a remarkable example of Keats' sensuousness. In the Ode to Autumn, the season of autumn is described in sensuous terms in which all the senses are called forth. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. Keats' epithets rich in sensuous quality. Keats is preeminently a poet of sensations whose very thought is clothed in sensuous images. The epithets he uses are rich in sensuous quality, watery clearness, delicious face, melodious plot. Not only were the sense perceptions of Keats quick and alert, but he had the rare gift of communicating these perceptions by concrete and sensuous imagery. Keats' sensuousness in different colors in his mature poetry. This delight is pure sensation was, however, but a passing phase with Keats. As his mind matured, his sympathies broadened, and he felt at one with the human heart in travail. His yearning for passing for the beautiful is transformed into the intellectual and spiritual passion. He sees things not only in their beauty but also in their truth. That sensuousness is a permanent bias in Keats' poetry is largely true, even as it is true that he is more a poet of sensuousness than of contemplation. Yet, like all generalized statements, these remarks are only partly true. Keats' mind is mainly sensuous by direct action, but it also works by reflex action, passing from sensuousness into sentiment. Certainly, some of his works are merely extremely sensuous, but this is the work in which the poet was trying his material and his parts and rising towards mastery of his real faculty and his final function. In his mature performances in the odes, for example, and in Hyperion, sensuousness is penetrated by sentiment. Voluptuousness is permeated by vitality, and aestheticism is tempered by intellectualism. In Keats' palace of poetry, the nucleus is sensuousness, but the superstructure has chambers of more abiding things and more permanent colors. Very beautiful. I quoted these lines from a very famous book written about Keats. Now I'm going to read Ode to Autumn, the most sensuous of the Keats odes. Ode to Autumn. Season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the that's eaves run, to bend with apples the most cottage trees and fill ale fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plumb the hazel shells with a sweet kernel to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has overbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee often amid thy store? Sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a high-wreathed furrow sound asleep, drowsed with the fume of poppies while the hook spears the next swath and all its twinned flowers, and sometimes like a gleaner thou dost keep steady thy leaden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful chore the small nets mourn. Among the river's shallows borne loft, or sinking as the light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bone, hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the red-breast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. Okay, very beautiful lines indeed, full of sensuousness. Thanks for listening.